The August Community Day has been announced in Pokemon Go, and it's Eevee. Eevee Community Day 2.0, but this time, we're not getting Last Resort. Each Eeveelution is getting its own special unique attack. Unique as in unique to the species. No new moves are being added to the game, which does mean no Fairy Wind, which is unfortunate, but new attacks for all the Eeveelutions. Sylveon is getting a buff from this, and the biggest winner of them all, a Pokemon I never imagined Niantic would ever buff, but they did, or I guess they are, Umbreon. Umbreon is a big, fat winner when it comes to Eevee Community 2.0. So let's get into the details here. So here's the official live post for the Eevee Community Day. Link in the description, of course, if you want to check it out. And then also link in the description to an article on Game Press that also covers some of these highlights and even more highlights than I may cover in this video. So link in the description to both of those things. Check them both out. At any rate, Eevee Community Day 2.0. We already had an Eevee Community Day, but we're having it again. And this time, we're getting special attacks for each unique Eeveelution here. Another unique feature to this Community Day is that it spans over 4 days instead of just 1 or 2 days. So from Friday, August 13th until Monday, August 16th, you'll be able to evolve your Eevee and get these special attacks. The Community Day itself, like the big Eevee spawning everywhere, special research, snapshot, ooh, it's an Eevee kind of stuff, that's only going to be on the 14th and the 15th, but to evolve your Eevee and get the special attacks, that's the 13th to the 16th. So a little extra perk there, giving you ample time to, walk for Espeon and Umbreon, 10 kilometers there, and then get the 70 hearts you need for Sylveon. Actually, little added perk, it's only 7 hearts instead of 70 for Sylveon. So if you haven't built a Sylveon yet, well, now is probably the time to do it, because it's only 7 buddy hearts compared to 70, you know what I'm saying? And if you think Last Resort is left out of this event, all Eevees caught or hatched during this time will know Last Resort, but when they evolve, they know the special attacks. What would be a nice little added perk is if you could charge TM Last Resort onto any Eeveelution during this time as well, but I guess they're not that generous. You still have to Elite TM if you want both exclusive attacks on your Eeveelutions here. So when it comes to these brand new attacks, I'm going to give you the highlights here. So starting out, we have Vaporeon with Scald. Scald is an interesting attack in Pokemon Go. I think there's only like one other Pokemon that can learn it without it being a legacy move. And it's bad. It's also not a very good attack. So Scald Vaporeon on the surface sounds kind of bad, but Scald does burn opponents in the main series games, and I could see Scald being up for a future buff or rebalance for PvP, maybe being as a debuffing move, because we are seeing that they are using poison afflicting moves, the status effect poison, being debuffing moves. We now have the cross poison and the poison fang. I guess cross poison's doing critical damage as a self buff. At any rate, I think they're abandoning status effects and they're buffing moves that they currently have held back for status effects. So I could see Scald getting some interesting buff in the future. Water type is a good defensive type for PvP, and Vaporeon honestly isn't that bad right now for PvP. It is pretty competitive with Bibarel, and we have seen Bibarel show up as a good competitive, spicy kind of pick for the Great League in the past. So I think Vaporeon does have potential in the future with Scald. So as a result, you're going to want to try to evolve a Vaporeon with Scald during this period. I think that would be a good one to try to get. Maybe get a couple of, so you got a couple options for your IVs, because it is still a random evolution. Which one of these 3 you'll get, you have no control over that. If you already used the name trick, I guess. I don't remember all the names for the name trick, but they might be on the screen right now for you. Isn't that movie magic fantasticness? At any rate, Vaporeon's pretty decent, so I think you may want to try to get several of these during the event period. Jolteon with Zap Cannon, not great. Probably never will be great unless Zap Cannon crashes your opponent's game when it's specifically used by Jolteon for a period of time, sort of like what went on with the Feather Dance there. But yeah, this one's a big pass, but if you're going for Scald Vaporeon, you're going to get them anyways, so whatever. And then Flareon with Superpower does sound interesting on the surface. Ember did get a buff, so that's cool for Flareon. Overheat is a decent attack, so that's also good for Flareon. But Overheat, Superpower, Ember, Flareon stat line, Flareon's still not good. So unless they do an Eevee Cup in the future or some nonsense like that, I really don't see Flareon with Superpower really happening. But if they do an Eevee Cup in the future, Flareon could break up the the Umbreon Sylveon core there with the fire defensive typing and the fighting coverage. Maybe. Is it 500 CP or 1500 CP for the Eevee Cup? Well, it doesn't exist, so who knows? Build both if you're truly concerned. But no, this one also kind of a pass, but you're probably going to get it because you're FOMO evolving for Scald Vaporeon. Next up, we have Espeon with Shadow Ball, and Espeon's stat line is not that great for PvP, right? But it is a confusion user. It does have Last Resort for like an early neutral kind of hit, and Shadow Ball is always a welcomed attack on confusion users. I don't think Espeon's going to be good in any sort of like general meta, maybe in like some sort of Ultra League format. I don't know if it'd be the Premier Cup or the Open Ultra League, but Hypno isn't all that great, even XL'd in the Ultra League, so this could be an interesting way for Espeon to maybe show up a little bit in the Ultra League. But aside from that, I don't think it's that great. So unless there's some sort of limited format, some sort of remix in the Great League or something, and Hypno's taken out, aside from those specific situations, I don't think Espeon's ever really going to be all that great. And even if those situations do come up, I still don't think Espeon's going to be all that great either. But if you do got time to walk an extra Eevee, you're not walking like 40 Umbreons or something, you got time for Espeon, I think it would be good to at least have one waiting in the wings for both Great League and Ultra League, just in case it does have something cool going on for it in the future. Then I'm going to skip over Umbreon here because there's a lot to unpack with Umbreon, and I'm going to talk about Leafeon. Leafeon with Bullet Seed. Bullet Seed and Leaf Blade is a pretty good combo. Tons of Pokemon already have it that are way better than Leafeon in both Great League and in Ultra League. So maybe build one just in case there's ever like a remix cup where they ban every single grass type except for Leafeon. That could be Leafeon's time to shine. Outside of that though, yeah, I don't really see Leafeon doing anything. Then next up we got Glaceon with Water Pulse. And on the surface this sounds pretty bad because Water Pulse is pretty bad. But we do have Icy Wind, Water Pulse, Ice Shard, Dugong, and that thing's pretty heckin' good in the Great League there. One of the upmost Great League threats that are really annoying to fight against sometimes. Glaceon doesn't have Dugong's bulk, and it doesn't have the water defensive typing, so that is a drawback. But I could see Glaceon popping up now in some sort of like future limited type format, and if Water Pulse does get a buff, the potential for Glaceon to stand out more, that potential increases there. So I think it'd be an interesting thing to just make sure you build at least one of and keep it in the back just in case. But in the general meta right now, definitely not a topmost pick, but a good one to have in the wings. I mean, if they're buffing Scald, they might buff a bunch of water moves in general, like Season 9, GBL, we're buffing water types for no good reason. Already one of the best types in the game, we're buffing it. Then yeah, Glaceon could maybe catch that wave. So I think you might want to build at least one, maybe two, maybe three, because it does have some play in the Master League as well, so it's just worth thinking about. Definitely not a priority, but worth thinking about. And then before we get into Umbreon here, we have Sylveon with Psyshock. Not Fairy Wind. Fairy Wind was data mined 2 months ago. Still, nothing has it. It's not in the game. We don't have stats on it. But we do know that it's in the game traffic. Like, they're thinking about adding Fairy Wind sometime soon. But not today. Not in August, I guess. Psyshock Sylveon. So this does sound a little bit disappointing, but this is technically a buff for Sylveon. It does hit earlier than Last Resort, and it has roughly the same sort of coverage or the same sort of functional coverage as Last Resort would have on Sylveon there. And then on top of that, it hits poison types, which beat Sylveon for super effective damage, which is pretty tight for Sylveon. Now, does this make Sylveon like skyrocket? It's all of a sudden a meta super good Pokemon there? Not exactly. It's still a confusion user that's kind of like the budget version of better confusion users, but this does help it stand out a little bit. I mean, Clefable has Psychic. Psychic has a 55 energy cost. Psyshock has a 45 energy cost, so it does hit sooner than that. So Sylveon can stand out a little bit more now with Psyshock. So if you haven't built a Sylveon yet, well, this will be the time to build one. And it won't be really too hard to build one at all because it's going to be 7 hearts, 7 buddy hearts, instead of the usual 70 to evolve it during this event. So, hey, might be time to build a Great League and Ultra League and maybe even a Master League Sylveon with this buff. And with all the other little Eeveelutions out of the way, let's talk about the big winner here. The real winner. Psychic Umbreon. Umbreon is already one of the best Pokemon in the Great League, and is quite possibly the #1 Pokemon in the Ultra League, and they buffed it. by giving it Psychic. Why did they buff Umbreon? I cannot tell you, but Umbreon is buffed. So why is Psychic a buff for Umbreon? Because it does super effective damage against fighting and poison type Pokemon, turning matchups that would be losses into victories should you be carrying Psychic. It's actually so good that many Umbreon are probably going to want to run Foul Play plus Psychic now in this new meta that will exist with Psychic Umbreon. And as a result, even if you aren't using Psychic on your Umbreon, if you're sticking with Last Resort for the the mirror matchup and other dark type matchups, that's the main thing you're giving up here. If you do keep Last Resort, all of your opponents have to respect you like you have Psychic until they have confirmation that you don't have Psychic. So even if you aren't flipping those poison and fighting type matchups by having Psychic, you probably are going to be getting shields from them that you wouldn't be getting otherwise, and they may be closing out the fights sooner, getting less farm from you than what they would usually get before, because they don't want to take their chances with you possibly having Psychic. So Psychic Umbreon in itself, Umbreon having Psychic, that's a buff. The potential for Umbreon to have Psychic, the mystery box of it, is an even greater buff for Umbreon. So whatever you do with your Umbreon in both leagues, it's up to you. But at the end of the day, you might have Psychic, you might not. Your opponent's Umbreon might have Psychic, it might not. And you got to take that gamble when you come into the Umbreon matchup now. You didn't have to do that before, now you do. So overall, what's the best moveset on Umbreon with Psychic being added? There's still reasons to use Last Resort, and of course there are reasons to not use Last Resort. If you keep Last Resort, then you keep dark type matchups such as Mandibuzz, the Umbreon Mirror, Skuntank, right? If you give up Last Resort and you go for Psychic, now you can potentially pick up poison type matchups like Nidoqueen, Shadow Nidoqueen, Golbat, Shadow Golbat, and other poison type Pokemon as well. I think Beedrill is on that list. And you also have the potential against fighting type Pokemon. Now when it comes to the even matchup against Shadow Machamp, I believe they still do beat you because they're just that powerful and they're just that fast. Psychic is pretty slow. But if you got some prior energy on you, well, then you could possibly outrace them there. If you got a shield advantage, you're definitely beating them. And if anything else, they weren't shielding your attacks before because what are you going to hit me with? Foul Play, Last Resort? Now they have to respect you because you might have Psychic. And I guess in this case, you do have Psychic, right? They could play their little silly games. This one doesn't have Psychic. And then boom, they get hit by Psychic. So which one of these situations is better? Well, you know how GBL is. The good old algorithm. Every time you use Psychic Umbreon, they're going to bring in an Umbreon to counter your Umbreon. Every time you use Last Resort Umbreon, they're going to bring in like a Nidoqueen to counter your Umbreon. So it's hard to say what the best moveset is for sure. But there are definite advantages to using Psychic, and there are definite advantages to using Last Resort. Then of course there is the third option, the Forbidden moveset, using an Elite TM for both Psychic and Last Resort. If you go for that, you try to put your hands into both cookie jars here, you can maintain those dark type matchups, and you can maintain those, poison and fighting type potential matchups, circumstances depending, of course, because energy costs. But what you are giving up in the process are a lot of neutral matchups, actually. Basically like a big handful of steel type matchups, you're now going to be giving up because Steel types resist both your charge moves. You thought you were playing some fun games there, Umbreon, and now Bastiodon and Galar Stumpfisk and Skarmory, they're going to show up and they're going to let you know just how funny your little games are, you know? And then there are other bulky neutral matchups as well that you will have problems with, such as Meganium and Wishcash as well. That's what I saw my quick little foray, my quick little PV poke sim there. Of course, with some of these matchups, the non-steel ones exclusively, you can make up for that by having a little bit of an energy lead. The moves aren't as good as Foul Play are when it comes to damage per energy, but they do more base damage against Pokemon, and Psychic does have the chance for the debuff. So I could see how that kind of works out, but losing the steel type matchups is pretty massive. So at the end of the day, I'd have to advise for the Great League, building 3 Umbreon, just so you got the Foul Play Last Resort, the Foul Play Psychic, and then in case the meta calls for it, or your team calls for it, or you're feeling a little bit spicy and you think it's going to work out, having the dual Legacy moveset, that could be a good idea, just to have it on the wings, have it on standby in case you want it. When it comes to the Ultra League though, I don't think this dual moveset would really work out as well up there, so you would be safe only building 2 Umbreon for the Ultra League, or maybe just 1. As far as which moveset is best for the Ultra League, I really can't say right now. If I had to pick just one, I don't have that much data behind me just yet, but if you are interested, I am going to be doing an Umbreon kind of deep dive video in the near future to help you guys get the most advantage out of building Umbreon for the Great League and in the Ultra League. So if you're not subscribed to me already, make sure to subscribe for that one. You want to know about the secret IV spreads of Umbreon? You want to know the niche advantages of running whatever Umbreon moveset? Well, I'll be covering that in that future video there, so make sure to subscribe for that. At any rate, that's all I got to say about the Eevee Community here. I'm pretty surprised. I'd say I'd be a lot more excited for it if Sylveon was getting Fairy Wind, because I really do want Fairy Wind Sylveon, especially sooner than later. But Psyshock Sylveon's an upgrade as well, so definitely will be building for that. And then, of course, everything else does have a potential advantage in some sort of dystopic future. So building everything, of course, can be important. But above all else, Umbreon. So start looking through your Eevee IVs, see which ones hit good for Umbreon, and subscribe to me for that future Umbreon IV moveset deep dive in like a week or two. At any rate, if you got any questions on this content, comment below, let me know what's up, and I'll be happy to help you out. And if you enjoy this kind of content, and you want to see more like it, make sure to subscribe to SwagTips. I'd also like to give a special shout out to these Patreon supporters. If you want to support Swagman on Patreon, link in the description. And just because I forgot to mention it earlier, if you do run Psychic on Umbreon, you do also run into the issue that Scrafty and Obstagoon just completely wall you now. Like, Last Resort at least did damage to them, but Foul Play with Psychic, they're just super clowning you now. Like, you had a chance to maybe beat them. Now there's like no chance to beat them. So that is another risk that you are taking on by going with the Foul Play Psychic there.